Welcome to the Anika Apple Podcast. I'm Anika Apple, author, trusted advisor, and spiritual strategist, called to prepare leaders for a higher purpose, to help them reconnect to the truth within so that they can live a remarkable life. Here, leadership is sacred, community is essential, and healing is a collective act of faith. Together, we align with our divine authority to lead boldly and to live life to the full. Welcome. This is where transformation begins. Thanks for joining me on the Anika Apple Podcast. You know, healing is an incredible journey. And as much as we feel the bliss of it, as things start to come together and they begin to make sense, and we recognize ourselves responding or not to things in the past that would have sent us off course, off kilter, that would have changed the energy that we were experiencing during the day, we know that going through the process of healing is very complicated. As a matter of fact, when you decide that you are going to allow yourself to heal, because healing is invited to become a part of your journey, when you make that decision, it feels like all of the things, all of the energy in the world around you starts to come to poke and prod at the very things that you have decided you're ready to heal. And I say that to say it is just simply not an easy thing. And it's no wonder that people don't rush to healing, that we don't run into it like, yes, please heal me, right? Because it requires that we open ourselves up to some of the most vulnerable spaces in our life, to feel some feelings that perhaps we've been really diligent at tucking away, to open ourselves up to remember memories that might be painful in this moment to even explore again. I think that sometimes we even feel like when we go through the process of healing, we're going to see things about ourselves that we don't want to see. And so we ask ourselves if it's really worth it. And the truth of the matter is that there really isn't much way around that. As you go through your healing journey, you absolutely find that it becomes more second nature, that you do get to, or at least it has been my experience, that you get to enjoy knowing that when the challenge comes, that you've got this. Like, there's so many times where I've looked at a situation and I'm like, this thing again? And then in the next breath, I'm like, all right, what are you here to teach me and show me? Let's do it, right? Like, there's just this determination that I already know that things will be better on the other side, and that whatever is coming up is in service of me becoming the version of myself which I so desire to be. That healed, that joyful, that energized, the zeal for life, all of the things that help me continue on the path to becoming. Now, healing is not a state of completion, right? So when I say heal it and be on the other side of it, I also recognize that each time I'm healing something, that I am coming closer and closer to having more agency around this particular thing. In general as well, but if we say on a specific thing, so let's say I'm healing the relationship to scarcity. Each time something comes up around scarcity, something that triggers or impacts that space for me, and I work through that thing, I'm recognizing the power that I have over it. I'm becoming more confident in my ability to navigate it, which doesn't mean there will not be more things that come up, because what comes up for you is a culmination of experiences that you've had in this lifetime and beyond. So the depth of how we have to heal, how many layers are there, is really unique to you and your journey and your experiences. And the beautiful thing about the healing process is that as you gain the strength and confidence of how you are navigating through it, there's more and more revealed to you about who you are. You can see yourself more truly and more fully. I would liken it to, there's a scripture that talks about this, removing the scales from their eyes. And it's like that. It's like each time you make the decision and you move through the healing and you choose new patterns, a new way of being, a new way of responding, a new way of thinking about or considering the thing that has come up for you, it's like another piece is removed and you see yourself that much more accurately. We are all divine beings. Like, this is the truth created by the divine. We could not be anything but. And we have a genuine opportunity to operate at the most optimum level, to have that life of our dreams, what I call a remarkable life, to have that experience all the time. We have that. It's available to us. And our process of healing is the thing that sets us on the path to really be able to enjoy, embrace, and create the next stages of that life in the way that truly suit us. In our earlier journey in life, we have kind of created what it feels like is right based on what we saw around us, not really fully knowing the truth of who we were. It is until you understand your identity that you begin to be able to shape life in a way that it actually suits and serves you, not the other way around. And that becoming that process of unveiling your identity and the truth of your purpose, that process of reconnecting with the divine and understanding your divine assignment, your mission, what you've chosen to do here in this life, what you chose to deliver, what you have chosen to support others in being able to ascertain for themselves, is all a part of that process. And in order to get to that place, we get to heal. I wanted to take this episode and share a little bit with you about Healing is Required, my upcoming book. For the next, several episodes, for the weeks and months up ahead, we're going to be delving into the topics in the book. And it is my goal to help you utilize this podcast as a place to digest some of the concepts, to wrestle with some of the things in the book, because I know you will need that. That indeed is a part of the healing that comes from this journey. And I also believe really strongly that there is, the repetition that comes from hearing the concepts, and certainly hearing it from the voice of the author, is going to benefit you in ways that you and I probably can't even fully understand in this moment. And so today I thought that I would take this episode and just share a little bit about the background of the book, how it came to be, what you should know about it that is unique, and I'll give you a little bit of insight into some of the content in the book. So what is Healing is Required? This book is a divinely given book for all of us. I'm blessed to be the author, the vessel that this book came through, but I am very clear that it is for the world. And it is all about our process to heal, why it even matters, what happens when we heal, how we have an impact on ourselves, our future lineage, as well as the people around us. And so it is a beautiful unveiling of the truth of healing. And what's interesting about this book is that I think, like many books, that it flowed through me. And as it did, I learned so much more, remembered more things that I had forgotten about the journey of healing. And I found myself throughout the process of writing this book over the past couple of years experiencing healing as I went. In the beginning, when I started to, write this book, I knew what it was that God was asking of me. And as I started to write and kind of prepare what some of the content was going to be, my assumption and perhaps desire was that I was going to sit down and I was going to write it and it would be done. And it would be out in the world. And what I did not realize is the depth of healing that would need to move through me in order to be able to deliver the book. And there are a couple of really significant times in my life, some of which I have gone back and added into the manuscript, but where there were such significant things happening that I needed to pause and heal. And I didn't even realize that that was what was causing the delay in the moment. I just knew that I was in a time where I needed to process what was coming up for me. And it makes sense, looking at it in retrospect, that of course I would have healing work to do as I went through the book, but I didn't necessarily anticipate that. I didn't know what to expect. And I'd like you to know that that will be a part of your journey as a reader. So the book is designed in such a way that there are prompts throughout it that really encourage you to take time and to journal. And this is going to be a really important part of your healing journey, because the reality is that you are going to see things in yourself that you don't realize are there. And you're going to want to come back and reflect on those things as you go throughout the balance of your healing journey. I don't even mean just the time that you're reading the book. I mean, in general, like you will want to have that ongoing experience. And so it's really important to give yourself time as you're reading the book. I don't see healing as required as a book that you grab, sit down in one sitting and you finish it cover to cover. I think you can do that to just get a very cerebral, sense of understanding of the contents of the book, but to really embrace and digest the content, it's going to take you some time. I don't know a person who has had their hands on the manuscript at this point who has not needed to sit it down, step away, and digest some of the things that were coming up for them. And even through my editing process, personally, I had those moments. I believe that this is a book that you will put on your bookshelf and come back to many times throughout your journey, because the wisdom that God has flooded me with for this book is so deeply needed, and it is nourishing, and it is transformational. So the upfront part of the book is a bit about my journey and why healing matters. I start off with a chapter where I talk about the truth is required, where I'm really grounding us all in some truths that we get to choose to hold at the center of our understanding as we go through the journey through the book. The next piece comes to the connection to the divine. So one of the things that I encourage, just as you are probably familiar with from the podcast or other content that you may have heard from me, is that we always want to embrace the fact that the way that we honor the divine may be different for different people, that your spiritual connection to the divine, you may call the divine God or source or whatever it is that you may choose to use, that it may be connected, your spirituality may be deeply entrenched in in the religion that you subscribe to. And so honoring that whatever it is that we see as the all, which I refer to as God in the book, that all healing comes from there. That same creator that created the bodies that we inhabit, the vessels that we live in, that they created the ability for it to heal itself, the body, and that we have full agency in healing ourselves. And sometimes that healing process needs to have other experts to be a part of it. I recommend and talk a lot in the book around like what the right support looks like and how to think about it and identify that for yourself. So there are times where absolutely you'll need to bring people into the journey, but there's also a really critical role you play that may be very different than how you think about healing today. And so a lot of the background of the book is based in what God says matters for healing. The theme overarchingly through the book is this massive connection that we have to each other that we often don't think about. And I know that may sound like a blanket statement, and it should, because as a whole in humanity, if we really stop to think of the core of who we are all born from love, designed to be love in the world, if we operated from that place, things would be very different. We have come to be and to move in society in a way that is very fragmented and separated, and we are on the heels of creating even more distance one from another. And that is not the design. And at the end of the day, in order for us to get to a place where we can begin to support one another, see one another in the way that we have the opportunity to, it will require us to do some work to heal. Not all of what we heal is a response to something that we chose. It's not all in a response to our response to things that happen to us. There are so many more factors as to how we got to this place that we have things within us that we need to heal. And a lot of what my own experience has been, and what I learned as I've been on this healing journey, and is that many times we don't stop to give ourselves grace and space to accept that we are carrying things that we did not create. And I think that it's impossible for you to really embrace what is available to you in terms of healing without going back to recognize that it's not all your fault. And I want to say it in that way because I want you to just feel that release in your body. It's not your fault. As a matter of fact, it's not even about fault. There is really no such thing, which I talk about in the book. And that's a whole nother topic we can get into in another episode. But knowing that it didn't all start with you, which is another great book, that it's not all because of, that this is not about judgment. It's not about going back to and feeling like you're rehashing all of the things of your life, the choices you would have done differently, all of that stuff. It's not about that. It's actually the opposite. It's about giving yourself grace, releasing and being like, it doesn't matter what all of the things were that got me to this place. What matters is the choice that I make in this moment. And even that decision begins healing for you. You get to make a new choice. So throughout the book, we're helping you to rewire your thinking about who you are in relationship to your healing, what you have the ability to do, how you can tap into the divine in order to do that work. And I talk certainly about some different practices and things that are beneficial, how you can think about creating the process of healing for yourself, and the deep, deep, deep work that it will take for us to be in real community with one another, which is God's design. So there's so much of wisdom that is in this book that I will just tell you. I am in no way uncomfortable saying it is wisdom beyond my lifetime. It is so big and so deep, and I'm honored to be able to bring this book to life. One of the things that I am really excited about in this is what it creates for you in terms of outcome. What I know is that through your process of reading and embracing the content of the book, getting really grounded in the why healing matters, understanding the role that you play in the connection to what we experience here in the earth. As you get yourself riled up and excited about all of those things, there is this positioning of you and who you are as you lead through healing that is a game changer. And that I'm excited about. I often observe people who, are going into the different systems of treatment. I was going to say medical treatment, but it's really bigger than that. And the image that I often hold is us kind of going in with our hands open saying, please fix me. And we miss the opportunity to be in our agency and declare what it is that we know we want to see be different, and to create a pathway to have the experience of that healing happen for us in the way that we know we need. And a lot of times when we are going in with our hands out, looking for the help to come from outside of us, we forget all of the wisdom and information that we have within. And so one of the parts of the book that I'm most excited about you having the opportunity to digest is to reframe the way you think about who you are in the process and what you get to bring forward. And I know that just simply that chapter alone can be incredibly transformational for us. I've met with a lot of people throughout my lifetime who have had stories about people who had things that were going on with them, and I'll use medical examples right now, where they, have gone to the doctor and no matter what tests are run or things like that, they come away with no answer, and how defeating that feels. And what's interesting to me is that in many instances, I think that we lack having the opportunity to really have someone who listens and helps us to digest what is going on beyond maybe the key symptoms and things that we would look for. This is not to say that there are not phenomenal practitioners who do exactly that, because there are, and I've been blessed to have many on my journey, which perhaps is why I can see this disconnect when I hear these stories for people where they are unable to identify these mysterious things that are going on with them. And of course, we can also hold true that sometimes these things are far beyond what you would commonly see and understand. But when we talk about the level of attention and care, the way that the medical system, at least in the US, is set up, is often very regimented with the amount of time that a practitioner has to spend with their patient. And that can impact significantly the opportunity to explore all of the possibilities of what's there. I mean, just imagine all of the things that could be symptoms connected to whatever it is that the person has come in to share. And what's interesting to me is, as someone who hears divinely, is that in some of these instances, there are like questions that just start forming for me. It's like, what about this? Have they thought about this? And how is this happening? And mind you, I am not a doctor, so I'm not sitting in a space of trying to diagnose what's going on. Instead, I am receiving divinely questions, places to probe. And what I know about this is that when we tap into that kind of power to connect to our body, to understand what's happening within, we can gain information that we can then provide to the experts. And so instead of coming in like this, we're coming in like this, with a partnership of, I have information, you have information, there's information over here, and maybe we'll seek this out too, and we'll bring all of these things together and then have an understanding of what's happening so that I can get the best care that I need. And ultimately, I get to choose the path that is going to work best for me, having seen and heard from all of the different places where there's information available. That is power. And that level of empowerment to lead the healing process in my life is something that many people do not experience today. And we get to change that through this book. The wisdom in the book, as I've said before, flow directly from God. Like, there are examples and stories and things that I will share that help really bring it all to life. But it is literal truth that flowed from God through me to you. And I cannot wait for it to be in your hands. So here's what you can expect over the next several weeks and months, is that we will be shifting the content in the podcast to really talk about different topics in the book. And I'm excited to bring different experts to you, to have some really spirited conversations, and I do mean spirited, around how we heal and why it matters, and some of the ways that you can tap into the processes in the book. One of the things I am super excited about is talking about inner child work. In the latter part of my writing the book, to the editing process, this last round of edits, I was doing a lot of inner child work. And some that I did on my own, some that I did with the most incredible expert, and I cannot wait for you to have an opportunity to hear from her. And when I tell you that that work was so incredibly transformative, there really aren't enough words to talk about what opened for me and how significant and I want to say rapid for me the healing was after that. It's like if you've ever been in a moment where you're like, I know there's something here, but I can't see what I don't see, that's where I was. And the inner child work is a perfect example of something that you may not be sure of how to tackle on your own. I knew that I was doing some of that work, and in the work that I do, and divinely the way that I've been led to do my own healing work, and having the amplifier of an expert in the space was an absolute game changer for me. And so bringing experts to you to have some really great discussions about what's possible with both some practical tips and, of course, additional resources that you can then reach out to and use on your journey is what we're dedicating the podcast to be. That doesn't mean that this will not still be the place for you to come for divine guidance, because we will still have some divine guidance here. I mean, I am always divinely led, so let's just be honest. Like, it's always going to be embedded in what we do. And, the podcast was born on the premise of talking about sharing divine guidance every month and talking about what leadership needs to look like, the refining and elevation of leadership, and what we are to, how it looks to lead in community with one another, and then what it looks like to heal. And so we are still talking about all of those things, but in the framework of this book and the content therein. And I'm excited for you to be on this journey with me. So I hope that our time together today has really encouraged you and made you feel excited about tapping into this book. Healing is Required. It will be in the market in September. And so I'm so excited about that being able to be in your hands. And what I would tell you is this, that first of all, before I go down that road, let me just say that you can sign up for the Insiders Circle right now at healingisrequired.com, or also on my website at anikaapple.com. It is the place to go right now. It's the wait list, but it will be the place to go for pre-orders, as well as some surprise and delight moments, launch events, all of that stuff. So everything in one place, and you'll find that on healingisrequired.com. And that, of course, as we go through the podcast, we'll be sharing pointing you to some resources and additional content that we share out there. If you haven't followed me on Instagram, I am on IG at the Anika Apple. And the same on TikTok, and then Anika Apple on Facebook. And so definitely encourage you to follow me in those places as well, to hear more about the book and my journey to the path to bringing it out into the world. And if you are already thinking about your healing journey and you're like, I've heard you today and I am ready for more, I am here. One of the things that you may not be aware of is that I offer a service called Soul to Crown, Crown to Soul, and that is intuitive guidance. Those sessions are ones where you can bring questions or have a desire to understand more fully your purpose. And they are truly divine sessions where God just flows through me to help you reconnect with purpose, with your identity, and to respond to those really poignant questions that you might feel like are in your way of having the clarity that you need to move forward. So if you think about what is the thing that you do to get unstuck, to feel that confirmation of what you believe you know, but you're just not quite sure. Or maybe you're like, I don't know, because I just don't know. But those are things that we work through in Soul to Crown, Crown to Soul. If you'd like to learn more about that, you can find that on my website as well at anikaapple.com or in the show notes. And the last thing that I would say to you is that in the time between now and September, which it's a blink of an eye away, but there's a lot of ground to be gained. As we continue to have interactions with people each and every day, there are all sorts of ways that things can flare up for us. So the thing that I would offer you today is to make the decision to begin to see yourself from a place of curiosity. When you see things coming up, responding in a certain way, feeling a certain way about a situation, you will find a ton of benefit of saying, that's interesting. That phrase alone is a great way to break up the process of starting to cast judgment on yourself, right? Or on others. Because a lot of times it's like, I'm judging you, right? I'm looking at the situation that we are just walking into and I'm like, why would you do that, right? That's interesting is a disruptor, and it causes you to pause and then say to yourself the obvious follow-up question, which is, what's so interesting about it? That's interesting. Okay, what's interesting? So now what do I want to learn in this moment? What's available to me in this moment? What could I possibly hear or see differently? What frame of reference am I using to look at this situation? What are the things here that I am making assumptions about? What things am I forgetting? Am I choosing to bring grace and gratitude into this moment? Because even the tough moments are created so that we can learn and grow from them. So if you're thinking about all of those different things in a moment where you are being, if we want to call it being triggered, or where something is like, stirring us up, or we're feeling an emotion that we would rather not be feeling, say, that's interesting. The image that always comes up for me in my mind is like a Sherlock Holmes, like with, like a magnifying glass, a spyglass, whatever. And you're like, let me explore this a little bit further. Because there's so much wisdom to be gained from the things that are repetitive, that come up for us, that make us uncomfortable. There's so much opportunity for us to explore things and to make a decision that we now want to release it so it doesn't continue to come up in the way. One of the things that I'm being led in this moment to share with you is one of the more recent things that I've been in the process of healing. So I had a really significant experience, and I talk about this a bit in the book, when I was a child. And somehow I held on to what happened as if I was the person who was responsible. Now, I knew that I wasn't responsible logically, but the way that I held this thing in my body was like, well, maybe if, there was something different. And I will say this in this moment, just given the time that we have left, that part of this situation ended with me having to share something with the adults in my life that was really scary for me to do as a young child. And I was afraid. I didn't know what would happen. I didn't know if people would believe me. I didn't know why. I didn't know how to navigate it. And what was really interesting for me is that when I did share it, I felt immediately that the person I talked to believed me. I absolutely felt that. And they told me they were going to take, certain action. And then nothing else happened. And eventually I shared it with another adult, and some of you are probably like, we know this story. And when I shared it with this other adult, and there's months that have passed between this time, or at least a month, if not more. And when I shared it with the second person, they sprung into action. So I got to see these two very different reactions. Both times, absolutely, but absolutely, it was not this feeling of like, I don't believe you, but there was a difference in the visible reaction that happened, right? And what I found very recently, like this is 4 decades ago, maybe more, that this happened. What I've realized really recently is that this connection to having what I say be dismissed was still deeply, deeply damaging for me. It was a very emotional area. So, like, if there was something coming up to be triggered, then it would be this, like, I heard you, but there's no action happening. And I recognize this through a multitude of things. Like, there was a conversion of events that the universe conspiring on my behalf to help me heal this thing. Because as I continue to say to God, what else, what else, what else? Because I actually do ask God to show me what else is here, what else is present to be healed. I kept seeing this thing come up, this repetitive pattern in all different ways. And I'm like, what is this? And as I started to dig in, I went back and I'm like, this is the scene of a place where it felt really scary to speak my truth. And I did, and I felt believed, and then nothing happened. Now, the truth of the matter is, as we know, is of course there's things that happen, but nothing that I saw. And this is like, I want you to liken this to like when you have a conversation with a loved one and you're telling them that you want to see something happen different, and they're telling you they hear you, but you can't actually see the change inside of them, right? They're like, I hear you. It's like parenting, like the child's like, I heard you and I'm going to do it, right? But what you cannot see is the decision inside of them. Are they really aligned? Are they really saying like, yes, I heard you and I am going to change? Or I heard you and it's in one ear, out the other. You don't get to see the way that happens. And we can decide that as a result, we're going to wait until, we see whatever happens down the road and see if there's evidence, right, that the shift has occurred, which is the graceful way to do it, is to like be like, okay, like my work here is done. I've said what I've needed and now I get to step away. Or we can watch. We can watch and wait. We can be ready to pounce like at the second that it doesn't look like it's in alignment with what happened. And the challenge attached to that is that whenever we make a decision to change behavior, there's a process that we have to go through. Ask anyone who's ever quit smoking, right? There are a few that quit smoking cold turkey and are just like, I'm just done. Most people go through a process of weaning themselves. It's like learning the new behavior. What's the substitute thing? What are all the things that they do to help get their mind ready to release this thing that there has been an addiction to? So there's a process there. And so if we're honest, when we are asking for, and there's an agreement to make change, it doesn't happen instantaneously. So if I go back to my experience, what I recognize is that in this instance as a child, this imprint that happened for me was like, when I speak my truth and I say things, I want things to be different, people hear me, but nothing happens because I am not worthy of them responding in a way that honors how serious what I say is, that it matters to me. And that may sound like, it might resonate with you and it might sound really silly, but I'm telling you my truth, right? And you'll have many of these moments in your journey as well, and probably already have. And I recognize that even though there was another situation where there was a response, and that response was like immediate and it was in front of me, like I saw them spring into action. So there was a contrast. Even though I had that, the story that I held on to was the first. Like, I will speak something and someone gets to choose if there is action that needs to be taken, they get to choose. And their choice to act or not then derives value for me. And if you're feeling the weight of that, thank you, because it's a big deal. Because I took all of this agency and put it in the hands of other people who were not going through my experience. Now, of course, I was a kid, so we get it, right? But just think about having that story, that kind of process running in the background as I go through life, and how many other situations have now been cataloged in the same way. Now, you can imagine how many relationships are impacted by that particular way that I recorded that incident and what it meant. This was a significant trauma, so I am in no way minimizing what I went through, but I'm just saying it became the foundation for so many other things. This is why healing is required, because how this can show up today is with a disconnect in relationships with people that I'm close to. It can show up in a parenting relationship, and it has. So in these moments where you are choosing to allow your value, your worthiness to sit in someone else's hands, you are not standing in the fullness of your power. You are not recognizing your own agency. And in order to get that back, you've got to do the work to heal. So it took me a while. I could see the things at the surface, the situations as they happened that were similar, that I was cataloging in this same way, but they would continue. I'd work on them and they'd continue to come back up. And this is why the work to get to the root of things, which we talk a lot about in the book, is so important. So ultimately, I would say throughout the process of going through the book, it continued to help me dig a little bit deeper, to meet the situations with curiosity, even more recent situations that have come up. And I'm like, that's curious. What are you trying to show me? And all of it converged back in these things. And I began to write the words like feeling dismissed and my feelings are discounted and all of this stuff. And like, what does that mean? And then what does that mean from that? And then what does it mean from that? All the way back to the root, to the places, the early memories and early traumas where I established that that is what it meant to me. And now I've rewritten that story, and you can do that too. We have the ability to heal. There's a chapter in the book that is called We Can Heal with God's Help. We have the ability to heal. Through my surrendering and asking for opening myself up for healing, these things have come up. And they have given me a great opportunity to do work on and in myself to heal. And it matters not only to me, but what I heal impacts my children and the rest of my lineage and the people that I interact with. There is a pretty big halo of impact in the work when I do work to heal. And the same exists for you. So I hope that the episode today and all that I've shared has gotten you interested, has piqued your interest and curiosity around Healing is Required. Please check out the website healingisrequired.com and sign up on the waiting list. And as soon as we open all the information up for book launch and all of that stuff, you will be among the first to have that sitting in your inbox so that you can make plans to join us on our book launch events and tours and conversations and all of those things. And if you have not yet subscribed to the Anika Apple Podcast, please make sure you do so that you never miss an episode and have the opportunity to go through the journey of unveiling this book. And I hope you will also share your excitement and interest about the book. Connect with us online on the website at anikaapple.com and make sure you share this with others. So it's going to be really exciting to watch all of you decide how you want to allow this to support your healing journey. I know that one of the visions that I hold is that people will bring it together into book clubs and have an opportunity to have some real conversations about what is to come. I wish you all peace and blessings, and I will see you on next week's episode. Remember that you were created to lead with purpose and power. It's time to step into your calling. Honor what's sacred within you and let your life be the healing the world needs. Until next time, and as always, peace and blessings. If you'd like to learn more about the work that I do or to connect for a chemistry call, visit AnikaApple.com.